Hello, it's Andy from the Movement Project, and today I'm going to be talking about migraines and whether a ketogenic diet might be a solution. So migraines are a really common condition. It's roughly about 1 in 5 women seem to suffer with migraines and 1 in 15 men. Now there are so many potential triggers of migraines, so I'll link in the description box below if you want to read through some of these triggers. I'd probably recommend you do these first and try to eliminate these aggravating factors before you try to start potentially doing a ketogenic diet. So there was a study done in 2019, so this year, so it's a really recent study. It was only a small study, so it looked at around roughly about 35 people. These people were overweight and they split them into 2 different groups and they gave them 2 different diets over 4 weeks. So one was given a ketogenic diet and one was given a non-ketogenic diet. So the ketogenic diet is basically a low calorie diet. So this doesn't mean that you don't have no carbohydrates, but I think they gave them roughly around about 50 grams a day. So this is still fairly low for some individuals. And if you do a lot of exercise, this might be a bit too low for you, but you can sometimes up it a little bit higher to 100 grams. So the 2 groups were given things like soups and smoothies, so they didn't know if they were consuming carbohydrates or not, so eliminating that possibility of any sort of bias. So everyone in this study suffered with migraines. So the research of the study found that 74% of people on the ketogenic diet reported that they had half as many migraines over the 4 weeks. This was compared to the other group that showed only a 9% reduction. So that was a huge difference in between the 2 groups. So if we compare that to some of the best medication out there for migraines, so there's a group of medication out there called CGRPs, they're monoclonal antibodies. Once again, description, there'll be more information in the description box below. These only reduce migraines by roughly around about 30 to 48%. So the ketogenic diet actually seemed to be more effective than these. Once again, this is only a small study, but it was just really interesting results. So how does this work? So when you're on a low carbohydrate diet, so your body can't use carbohydrates as an energy source, so it starts to break down fat, which is then broken down by your liver, and it forms a chemical known as a ketone body. Now the ketones can be used for energy, it can be used by the brain and your muscles, and just to let you know, this is a normal process. Everyone has this ability to do this. And if you imagine with our ancestors, they would have gone through large bouts of time when they wouldn't have had access to carbohydrates. So their body would have always been breaking down fats to form these ketones, and then so our body could use those as energy. So the researchers thought that these ketones dampen the inflammation within our brain and also reduce certain brain waves that are possibly responsible for migraines. The diet also might work because when you lower carbohydrate intake, this reduces insulin. Now insulin is also thought to maybe play a role in migraines. So like I said before, a low carb diet can consist between roughly around about 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrates. Now this really depends on how active you are. So if you're really sporting individuals doing a lot of different activities during the day, then you could maybe increase to the higher amount, roughly around about 100 grams. If you lead a sedentary lifestyle, so you're sitting all day and you don't do much activity, then maybe try to reduce this near the 50 gram mark. Now also, just to note, with a ketogenic diet, we don't really know the long-term effects of this diet, so I'd probably recommend to stick to this diet for roughly the same time that the authors of this study did, so roughly about 4 weeks, and then maybe cycle off it. Also, don't worry if certain days you have a bad day and you have more carbohydrates. Just try to, then the next day, try to once again reduce it down, or cycling when your migraines are getting bad. So if your migraines seem to be playing up, try to do more of a low carb diet or this ketogenic diet and see if this reduces your frequency of the migraines. Also, with your carbohydrates that you do ingest, make sure that they are from healthy sources. So these are things like whole grains and veggies, and try to limit those from simple sugars, things like chocolate, sweets, honey. These are the ones that generally aren't the healthy carbohydrates and will cause things like a spike in your insulin, which I mentioned before may be causing your migraines. So if you were thinking of doing the ketogenic diet, I'll add a couple of books in the description box below that you can maybe look at, and then you can follow these to make things a little bit easier. If you do know someone who's got migraines, then please forward this video to them. I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching.